So, how do we get our shaders to interact with light? Well, let's take a look at this one instead. And it is using Matte Surface. Matte Surface has custom surface shader. Now here is what our surface shader looks like. You notice first of all that it's much shorter than the other one. We're still using a tint or color. We're still using a main texture. And our tags are still the same. It's still opaque and geometry, but our pragma is different. Instead of using a vertex vert and a fragment frag, what we're doing is a surface surf. We're also doing standard and then fall forward shadows. And that just means that our shadows are correct. And our variables are just color and main texture. We have one structure called input, and all it does is take in the main texture, or all it does is have a UV for the main texture. So we're telling it to run the surf. It has an input I, and then an in-out surface output standard O. This is a standard data structure that Unity has, which is really nice. Unity has a bunch of them that we're using, again, to take advantage of all the stuff that Unity does automatically. We're just calling it O. In-out is a weird keyword. It means that we're taking this object in, but we're also sending it out again. So we have fixed for color is texture 2D, main texture I, dot UV. Same thing as before. Here is what our color is. It's the texture. It's mapping the main texture to our input UV main texture. We're again multiplying it by color, but this time we're setting the albedo of O to the color. We're not returning anything because, again, in-out sends the surface output standard O out. So what does that mean? It means that this object, or objects that use this shader, will have proper lighting. This is all the same color because it doesn't interact with light. For this object, you can see that the top is very light. The front facing us is pretty light, but not as light as the top. And then the side, because it's in the shade, is much darker. Same thing with the inside. We went to the other side. This is a little darker, as the angle of our sun means that it's slightly darker than the front. Even if they were the same shade, it would be easy to tell where the line is because of the way that these are interacting with light. And the reason it's interacting with light is because it's a surface shader instead of just the very basic shader. If we have a look inside, you can even tell that we have stairs here because I went a little overboard when I created this house. So that's what our standard surface shader looks like. And if we apply the standard material to this, and if we did standard, it'd look very, very similar. Because we don't have a whole bunch of details on it. Let's put it back to our surface. So surface shaders are generally where you want to go if you want it to interact with light and look normal, essentially. You can have these basic ones with a vertex and fragments interact with light, but they take a whole lot of math that we have to do ourselves. We don't actually have to do the math ourselves. We just have to know how it fits together, which usually involves matrix multiplication. We don't have to do that, but we have to know what variables to put in which positions to get the light to interact properly with our objects, which can be a little difficult.